Good morning. We are live. This is Normalized Breastfeeding Live with your host, Vanessa Simmons. I'm going to talk with a couple of photographers today about Facebook breastfeeding policy. We've got some issues with it. We're going to talk about why, and we're going to talk about the fact that they're allowing us to post images, but what they're not allowing us to do with those images. So I just want to welcome this morning Ashley Wells Jackson from Fourth Trimester Bodies Project. Good morning. You can unmute yourself.
Good morning, Vanessa. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, definitely. I'm really grateful to have you on today. We're just going to talk a little bit about, where all of this started. And I know that you said that it started about a year ago. So just give me a little bit of a timeline on that. And then I'm going to also introduce our other guests, and then I'll come back to you and we'll go into the depth of your story.
Sure, yeah. The project has been alive for about 2.25 years now, and I would say within our first couple of months, images started disappearing, and primarily breastfeeding images at first while it's run the gamut with us and our accounts. But about 2 years ago, we started getting hit really, really hard. And that we lost, I think, 6 or 7 Instagram accounts in the span of a week. So that was definitely the most difficult time for us, although, the issues preceded that and have continued with censorship as well.
Okay, great. So thank you for that introduction. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our other guest, Sabrina Rexing. Thanks so much for coming on with us today. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Of course. I'm very passionate about this. I'm very new to being censored. I'm certainly not having done this for the last 2 years. It's actually just started in the last month or two. And it's beyond fresh that I can talk about it.
Yeah, I'm really, when you came to me asking me, have you dealt with this? I was like, oh my gosh, she has no idea the rabbit hole that she has fallen into. It was crazy. And I mean, for me, this all started about a year ago as well. And I felt like I was the only one experiencing. I was thinking, well, maybe none of the other breastfeeding photographers are, trying to advertise, their photographs. So we'll talk more about that. But I mean, I was grateful that you came to me, and hopefully Lacey will come on as well. But me and her were the ones who kind of stuck together probably about 6 months ago, and we started saying we need to get photographers on the ball with this because nobody's really trying to advertise our photographs. And so she was one of the first people who told me about it, and I was like, we need to do something, and so I reached out to Ashley from Fourth Trimester Bodies, and I knew that she had experienced some stuff. I knew Jade Beal had experienced some stuff, and I reached out to her as well. She wasn't able to come on, but I felt like there has to be some type of camaraderie among the photographers where we're linking together and trying to use our collective reach to try and change this policy, because it's very contrary that they would set up a breastfeeding policy and make all the moms and all the supporters really happy about it, but then on the back end say, oh, but you can't advertise with those images. Just remember that. It's like you're not really allowing us to do what we really do as photographers, which is support breastfeeding moms with these images. How can we support them if we can't advertise on our page to let people know what's going on and draw in more people to our projects or our photography pages in itself? So it's very interesting to deal with that. So I'm just going to really quickly, I'm going to take a moment to thank some of our sponsors and talk a little bit about the event that we have coming up in just about a week and a half. We have Breastfeeding Law Awareness Day. So last month, it was our big anniversary. We did International Day to Normalize Breastfeeding, and it was awesome. It was not the plan like a year ago to have some like International Day, but that's how things kind of came into place, and it was amazing. We had people reaching out from Korea, South Africa, I mean all over the world, trying to be a part And then my tour for normalized breastfeeding is going to be kicking off on August 10th, and it's kicking off in Sacramento. And the mother that really wanted me to photograph her suggested that we host the meetup at the state capitol building. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. I mean, I don't go to the state capitol all the time. I'm like 700 miles away. And so I figured this would be a really good opportunity to draw awareness to breastfeeding laws. Now, in the past, I've also dealt with the nationwide nursing, Laura Delmonico. If you watch my podcast, she's been on several. And I just want to say thank you and give a shout out to her, because Nationwide Nursing, the private group, and now they also have a public page that's still in the growing process. She has created an event where every year, while the lawmakers are in session, that they actually meet at the state capitol of their state and do a nurse-in to draw attention to breastfeeding laws. So this event is now more of a celebratory reflection of that, where we're specifically meeting to gather and take a photograph in front of the state capitol. And so it's very exciting. We have 8 photographers across the country that are participating. Sabrina Rexing is one of them. And all they're doing is they're creating an event as a co-host under the event of Breastfeeding Law Awareness Day. They're creating a local event under their photography page, and then they're basically gathering the people there to meet and take a photograph at the state capitol building. And so it's very exciting. We're going to be posting on August 10th. It's a Monday. All of the images that the photographers are sharing. I'm asking a lot of them. I'm asking them to process them the same day and get them online so that we can share the word and let people know that we have actually received approval of our proclamation that we submitted in Louisiana and Nashville, and we're waiting on the actual document from Hawaii. We sent that proclamation to almost every single state in the United States. So very excited about that. And I just want to read really quickly a list of our co-hosts. Give me 1 second to pull that up. This is the only tab I did not set up. Sorry about that, guys. So so the event, like I said, is a celebratory fashion, a celebratory reflection of, the nationwide nursing. So be sure to check that out in 2016. It's in April. You can just head over to their page or their group and get involved in their event for next year. Sorry, my voice is really raspy. Just drink some water too. All right. So I'm just going to really quickly read a list of our co-hosts. See if I can open this up. All right, so really quickly, the official locations that we have Sacramento, Oklahoma City, Lansing, which is in Michigan. We had Washington, D.C., Hartford, Connecticut. We have Austin, Texas. And I believe we just got New York last night, so that should be exciting. So our virtual co-hosts are Candid Perspective Photography, also Nationwide Nursing, Sarah Dragman Photography, who's in Oklahoma, Erin White Photography, Megan Konoski Photography, and Vita Katori Photography. And then we also have Sabrina Rexing Photography as well. And I believe it's Allegras Photography in New York who just signed up with us last night. She hasn't been added to the list yet. All right, so let's get into this. Let's dive in, ladies, and let's chat a little bit about, what's really going on with this Facebook breastfeeding policy. I'm going to let Sabrina tell us first, just because, Ashley, I know your story is very in-depth. So we're going to dive into that in just a few seconds. But Sabrina, I want you to go ahead and tell me what happened when you first submitted your photo. What was your intention when you were submitting the advertisement?
Well, last month, or may have been May, I found this local group here in Austin, Texas, called Boss Babes Austin, Texas. And it's a group of entrepreneurial women who support each other and promote each other. And they featured me on their blog and all about my breastfeeding photography. And I was so honored and excited. So I went on Facebook and I wanted to advertise their blog post, showing my fans, because Facebook will show 30 people my post or 50 people my post. And so I wanted to get it out there. I wanted people to see it. So I tried to boost a post with a link to their blog, and I used one of my breastfeeding images. And it wasn't even a picture. It was just a mom nursing her baby, and so I'm sort of automated through the appeal process. After my first appeal, they responded about 24 hours. Mistake, I'll approve it right now. And so of course my response, yes, great, thank you. That's what was supposed to happen. Unfortunately, they didn't actually approve it. And so 2 days after that, I contacted them again, and they had no idea what I was talking about. You don't have an ad. What ad are you talking about? And so it was this back and forth of, more information. You don't have any ads that have been denied. It was back and forth, and then we left it where they just haven't gotten back to me. So at this point, I'm just being ignored. I also submitted another boost this week, trying to boost the event that we're doing on August 10th, and same thing happened. Ad was denied. I submitted for an appeal. They have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. I don't have any ads that are denied. It's just very frustrating because it's right there in my account. You're denying these breastfeeding photos for sexuality, for cleavage, things that it just doesn't make sense.
Right. And I can understand your frustration. And for you, I think you kind of lit the fire back in me, because last year I was livid. This was like the end-all be-all. Like, how can I have a page called
Yes.
Normalize Breastfeeding if they're not going to allow me to advertise to normalize breastfeeding? I was like, this doesn't make sense. And so I can totally, see and feel where you're coming from. And I was there a year ago, and I haven't tried to submit any advertisements recently, only because I know that they will do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm going to show you the images that I submitted last year, and you guys can take a look and see what what is really, your image obviously is not offensive at all, but I feel like, some of the images that I use as well were right along that line. Some of them didn't show anything at all, and they still didn't approve them. And I was like, come on, you guys, you're telling me that you are breastfeeding friendly, supposedly you guys are allowing all of these breastfeeding photos to be, not to be reported, yet what you are doing is you're keeping us from being able to share them on a wider scale. The whole point of using the advertising is so that they can make money and so that we can get more views, right? That's the whole point. But then they're even keeping us from doing that. And so I'm going to show you really quickly some of the images that I had to deal with last year. And this is like really when I was first starting out, so I didn't have a ton of breastfeeding images to even use as my cover photo for the advertisement. So that was, I think, more in itself, like more frustrating than anything else, because I'm sitting here trying to promote the page and, nothing. So let me pull these up really quickly. All right. I just need to share my screen with you. All right. So this was the first image from the very first shoot that I did last year with a close friend of mine. Since then, this this text that I have here on the screen, when I sit down to eat, so will she, is that okay with you? Since then, the is that okay with you has been removed, so this is not an updated version, but I just want to show you, if you look here on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that Facebook was not running my breastfeeding advertisement due to sexual content and nudity, and that it violates their nudity policy. And so I actually had run across Ashley from the Fourth Trimester Body Project. I had run across some of her stuff that was going on during the same time, and she was using the hashtag stop censoring motherhood. And so I said, well, hey, I'm going to throw this on there too. Yeah, they need to stop censoring motherhood, and they need to normalize breastfeeding too. And so this was before I had a chance to connect with Ashley. That was one of the images. Here's another one. And they were just basically saying that I was focusing too much on one body part. You know, in my eyes, it's like, but there's a baby right there. I mean, there's no way I can not focus on this part if I'm trying to focus on the baby. Another one, and all of these were back to back. These are all cover photos that I changed to try and see if they would approve, and they just denied after denied after denied. I tried this one. You can't even see her boob. You can see a little line of cleavage right here, but you can't even see her boob. Baby's covering her boob. Okay. This one, you can see the boob, but it's focused on the eyes. It's low resolution, so it doesn't look that great. But I mean, seriously, what is the deal? And then I tried this one. Oh, sorry. Go back. I tried this one. You still can't see the boob. You can see a little bit of cleavage, but still denied. This one was denied. And this one was denied, where you can hardly see anything. You can't see anything at all. And you guys can feel free to unmute yourself and comment if you'd like to. But I mean, it got worse and worse and worse. And this is a picture at last year's Big Latch On, where I was with my daughter. And you know, she's never witnessed breastfeeding before me breastfeeding my son. And so I took her to the Big Latch On, and we took her baby doll, and she practiced her breastfeeding at the Big Latch On. And this picture even got denied. And so I think it was after this picture that I was just done. I think I tried this one, and I think this one got denied too. I mean, they just started denying me for everything. And so I finally got to the place where I said, you know, enough is enough. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and push this campaign as organically as I can, because what else can I do? They're not letting me advertise anymore. And this was when the page was still very, very new. Last year, we had started the page in June. So this was August of last year. I mean, it was very, very new. I think we had close to like 1,000 likes, something like that. So you can see the images that they are basically, you know, denying are not sexual content. They are not overly use of a body part or too much focus on a body part. It's a mother breastfeeding her child, feeding her child, and it is what it is. So I'm going to go to Ashley, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I just want to say thanks again for being on the podcast. I know you've got a super busy schedule.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize for the conflicts. We are busier than we can believe at times like these, so I appreciate you working around that a little bit.
No worries at all. I was like, well, maybe we can get her before she actually leaves. I mean, that was my biggest thing. I was like, once she's gone, like, anything else can happen and open up, and I was like, let's just try and stick it in right here, and maybe we'll get her, you know, get her in. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your story as well. Let's go back to when it all started, and tell me about, was the image that you first submitted the image of yourself?
It was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so our flagship image is me and my surviving twin daughter. I'm breastfeeding in the photo. However, I've never viewed that as even the focus of the photo. But that's our flagship image. That's the one that we initially and continue to kind of use as our logo, so to speak. So when we first tried to submit an ad, that is the one that we used, and it came back denied for too much nudity, which was a surprise. I mean, all of the censorship we faced in general, it feels naive to say now, but something that I never anticipated. And I think for me, particularly because, you know, my photography within Fourth Trimester Bodies Project is, you know, in the photo documentary sense, and I view it more as an art project than, you know, portraits, you know, for clients. I never anticipated the images being an issue in any way, shape, or form. But we tried, you know, advertising a couple of times when we were pretty new, and it was nudity. And then we tried to do our tour schedule, which is mostly text, and then that was denied for too much text. And, you know, we got to a point where it was like, we can't win. And while this would be good for us to have this reach and get these images out there, you know, there came a point pretty swiftly for us that we realized we are trying to pay this company that's throttling us and censoring us money, which, you know, on the one hand will benefit us in the long run, but it just wasn't worth it for us. So, you know, we pulled the plug on even attempting to submit ads pretty early, but we had exactly the same issues that you touched upon. I think with the double-edged sword of, you know, when we took the photo away and then went about it the other angle, we couldn't win either, because, you know, then we were off on what their ratio was for, you know, for text to images. So it's been really, really frustrating. And then, as you mentioned, for us, the reasoning behind our images being censored, you know, in advertising and across, you know, just our platforms in general, has really been random. It has been, you know, for nudity, it has been for pornography, it has been for child pornography was one of the most recent ones, because our little babies are, you know, undiapered. You know, there's been a lot of very obvious and apparent reaching and changing of the guard. And it's, you know, it's really frustrating to see, and not just within the project, but, you know, I've had, you know, snapshots of myself, you know, removed as well. We work closely, one of our sponsors are the ladies who've created the Tata Top, which is a bikini top, if you're not familiar, that uses male nipples instead of female nipples to make a statement. And we were on their, Laura, my business partner, and I were on their float in this year's Pride Parade, and on their account they posted a photo of me nursing Nova wearing the top. You can't see anything. You see a baby nursing, I'm covered. And, you know, Facebook and Instagram both took that photo down. So, you know, as you both well know, there's so many contradictions. They'll say breastfeeding is allowed now and is protected, and as long as the baby's engaged, you can even show another breast exposed. But in reality, you know, those guidelines and those agreed upon conditions are continually violated by themselves. And it's, you know, it's frustrating, as you touched upon, trying to reach the women that we're seeking to support is made much more difficult by this continual runaround.
Definitely, definitely. So, I mean, what has been, you know, your take on it since then? I know that you had the whole petition going. I know that you had the Stop Censoring Motherhood hashtag running. You know, what have you guys done since then, or what are you doing now? Or is this even like a thought? Is it an afterthought now?
Yeah, you know, we're definitely not as entrenched in it as we were a year ago, and that's not because we've, you know, surrendered, but I think it's because we pushed as hard as we possibly could, and we, you know, for lack of a better word, got nowhere with them. You know, we tried to have our legal team contact their legal team. We tried to have meetings. We tried to reach out to the powers that be, you know, via the media, and say, let's sit down, let's have a conversation. We want to help you do a better job. We want to be able to do what we seek, which is just supporting women and normalizing breastfeeding in our bodies. You know, we can do those things together. Let's sit down and talk. And the backlash and the amount of ignoring and talking around the issue or denying the issue that they did was really upsetting and honestly somewhat defeating. So I think our new tactic is, you know, you do what you do. We'll continue to call it out when it happens, but we're going to carry on. You know, they can allow it or not allow it. They can, you know, remove our photos while we sleep sometimes, but we're going to keep putting new photos up. We're going to keep talking about the issue. We're not going away. So I think that's the way that we've chosen to approach it now. You know, and we're going to keep addressing it. We might not, you know, allow that to be our main focus anymore, because it became, you know, trying to fight them and trying to, you know, to change this really became all-consuming, and got to the point where it detracted from the broader work that we've been trying to do. So it has taken a back burner, but definitely something that we still, you know, quietly address at the very least on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. I can completely understand where you're coming from. You know, it becomes very daunting, and it becomes very, you know, it's something that kind of weighs you down. It's like, I've done all this work, all this footwork, and now I just need to promote it, and I can't promote it. Even though you're paying for it. I'm going to give you an example. So last year when I put in that ad, with the one that said, when I sit down to eat, so will she, they actually ran my ad. I want to say for a good 2 weeks. I invested close to $100 on running this advertisement for my page. They told me that it was approved, and then they charged me. And then when I tried to run the ad again, that's when I got the first hit that it was not approved for sexual content. Mm-hmm. So you can only imagine the anger, it was boiling inside of me. I'm like, wait a minute. You just charged my account and told me that basically because I got page likes. So they went ahead and charged me, but then they told me you can't run this ad anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, it was like a downward spiral. I was so upset. And I mean, I was just trying to grab for anything, trying to say, you know, this is sexual content. This is sexual content. This is not sexual content. Right. And either way, you know, it didn't make a difference. It ended up being one of those type of things where it's like, you've lost. Just let it go. Mm-hmm. Accept the fact that you're not allowed to advertise with these breastfeeding images that you work so hard to, you know, to create. And so that was something in itself that threw me for a loop, and it made me feel like, okay, let's move forward. Not going to worry about advertising. We're going to find whatever organic way we can to build this up, which I'm sure you've had to do, which I'm sure Sabrina's going to have to do. It's just one of those things that's like, it's set in stone. But I would like to see that this talk continues. I'm definitely planning on having additional versions of this podcast that we're doing today, to be able to engage other photographers, because breastfeeding photography, the niche is so new that it's very, very possible that people are going to, you know, they're going to run into this more and more often. And when it happens, we need to have a platform. We need to have a place where we can discuss it collectively and attack it collectively, so that we can actually, you know, use our collective voice to make a difference, to try and change it. I know that you've submitted, Ashley, like information to Facebook directly. I don't know what their response was to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? We have a few more minutes, and we have a question.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, for us, we want, again, as I said previously, we wanted answers. So we emailed every email address that we could. You know, now that Instagram is also owned by Facebook, and we've had issues there, albeit not with advertising, but with content. You know, I had a friend of a friend who was a female photographer who was employed by them. So we reached out through her. Again, we contacted our friends and supporters in the media and said, hey, can you use your platform to contact them? So we have record of communication with them but still, you know, despite hundreds of emails and countless news stories and people asking on our behalf, including our legal team who was in touch with theirs, you know, they tried to say for the longest time, every time someone reached out, oh, what? We don't know about these people. We don't know about this project. We'll look into it. And then nothing, you know, the denials, the back talk has been infuriating. And while we have pushed, again, for that conversation from the very beginning, we've never had it. We've never been granted a direct response from them. One of the, I think, most upsetting situations that we had where we tried to, seek that response was this time last year when we were having the most difficult time with it. And we actually had the Today Show come out and film us on location, and they put together a really positive, amazing piece on what was happening. And at the 11th hour, Facebook tried to shut it down. And we're getting text messages throughout the night that the higher-ups at Facebook are, contacting the higher-ups at NBC, and they're trying to kill the story altogether. And thankfully, the producer that had put it together really pushed to get it out there. But the story that ran wasn't the story that she made. It was much more of a fluff piece. And at the very end, Facebook's comment that they, allowed them to use was that they have and always have allowed breastfeeding photos, which is just a lie. It's only been in the past 2 years that they've had a policy regarding breastfeeding photos in general, and the stipulations for breastfeeding photos being permitted in the beginning was very convoluted and allowed a lot of room for people to remove them. And we're still seeing that. So, that's been for us, I think, again, the most frustrating and somewhat defeating part is trying to have those honest and open conversations and trying to make that change and work with them to create something that we can all benefit from, and their complete unwillingness to entertain that conversation and be open and honest about it as well.
Definitely. Thank you for that information. I did not know that it had gone that far up and that they tried to shut it down. We definitely need to have that information out there, and maybe we can collectively start to create. And I know you've seen. For any other photographers that might be watching, I have created a photographers forum for normalizedbreastfeeding.org. You can find it through Facebook. Feel free to join there. It is a closed group, so just submit a request and I can add you in. But I really want to start creating a conversation, a dialogue among the photographers. What can we do collectively to try and change this? Because it seems like Facebook doesn't want to change it. But we need to know why. What's the difference? What's the double standard? And I'm going to go to the question now from Amanda Jackson, who's watching. Thank you so much for submitting a question, Amanda. I appreciate it. And she's basically saying the same thing. What I don't understand is Facebook seems to try to be open to the whole posting of breastfeeding photos on your own page, but why is it a double standard on a business page? And so, that's exactly what we want to know. Why is there a double standard? Why is it that you can see pornography on Facebook with 30,000 to 1 million likes of a photograph, and maybe they never submitted it for advertising, but that is sexual content. Breastfeeding mothers and their babies it's not sexual content. So we need to see some transparency here. The fact that they want us to, or they're allowing us to, submit breastfeeding images just to post them. It's like, yeah, posting them is great, but let's say I'm a breastfeeding photographer, which I am, and I'm a breastfeeding mom, which I am, and I run a page that's about breastfeeding and photography, which I do, and I want to submit an advertisement to promote that page. So you're telling me that I have to use a picture of what exactly to promote that page? I actually did do a little test behind the scenes of trying to submit another type of advertisement. So I went through their actual, I went on the desktop, I didn't do it mobile, and I tried to see, okay, well, what can I submit? So they have this other way where you can create an advertisement using their stock photography. So you pick an image based on what is your topic. So I just put breastfeeding. They've got a bunch of stock images of breastfeeding that they will let you use to run an advertisement, but it has nothing to do with your project, with your page. It's just this generic image. You might not even like it because it's probably not got the artistic quality that you would prefer. Technically, usually on a white background, nothing fancy about the image. And I think from what I've seen, I I've never seen any that are like I mean, they're uncovered breastfeeding photos, but it's like you can't even really tell she's breastfeeding, or they have like breast pumps, like just hanging out arbitrarily on the surface, and you're supposed to use that to promote breastfeeding. I'm like, okay, that kind of is the same. I mean, yeah, I could say, hey, where are my pumping moms at? But I mean, seriously, like, this is what they basically put us into a box to do, is we either use their images or we don't advertise. And
Well,
I've
and
tried doing that.
that's false
Go ahead.
advertising. Sorry.
Exactly. No, it's true. Go ahead.
It is, because those aren't our images. That's not what our client's going to get. I mean, we're not going to do anything like that. So we're going to put this stock image online, and our potential clients are going to see it, and they're not going to recognize it as our artwork. And or maybe they'll see it and be like, yeah, I'd love to take a picture just like that. Well, I don't take pictures like that because that's not my picture. That's false advertising.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think also as somebody, through my work that seeks to represent all of those variations, I haven't seen those stock images, but I can only assume that they are very typical, normative, Western standard of what a woman should look like and what age baby should be breastfeeding. I can only imagine that there's not a whole lot of variation both on the representation of the women in those images as well as the babies that are breastfeeding, which is, another issue, I think, in and of itself with those limitations that's, not adequate.
Definitely. Well, we're coming to a close on our time. I don't want to keep anybody over at longer than they needed to be here. I know we got started a little bit late, but I don't want to keep anybody over time. So I want to say thank you so much, you guys, for taking the time out to be here. It looks like Lacey didn't come on. It's okay, Lacey, if you're seeing this. It's all right. It's 1:30 a.m. in Australia, and there's no worries on this end. But we'll definitely be continuing this discussion. We'll definitely try to get some more photographers involved and try to keep the ball rolling on this because it does need to change. It's one of those things that, if we don't lift our voice and discuss it and talk about it and try to look for some type of way to deal with it, there's nothing else that we can do. We're going to just be stuck in this place of, well, I still can't advertise. So thank you, ladies, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who's been watching, and thank you, Amanda, again, for submitting your question. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time. All right, everyone,
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Vanessa.
Bye.